Good morning, everyone. Welcome to Catalyst Energies. My name is Dee. Thank you for joining me. I'm so grateful that you're here. This is the Daily Medicine Transmission for May 7th, 2021. Thank you for being here. Welcome back to my subscribers, my audience, all of you who have been on this journey together with me. Seriously, you're the lifeblood of this channel, and I appreciate you so much. If you're new here, welcome. Thanks for dropping by. And as a reminder, always to all of those who have stopped by, if you enjoy this content, if you find it inspiring and helpful, you think that it might be useful to other people, any interaction that you have with the content actually does support the channel. So when you comment, when you like, when you share and subscribe, that all actually makes an impact on the AI algorithm that decides if this information, this content is worth spreading out to a larger audience. So thank you for doing that in advance, and I appreciate it so much. So let's get right into today's transmission. It's Friday. That means there'll be some astrology coming very soon for the new moon. Oh my God. Wow. I don't even know what to say anymore. What I will say is that the Schumann right now is peaking, the highest that it's actually been throughout this entire week. It's really a struggle in a good way to stay grounded right now. There's a lot happening, and it is, in fact, time to stop hiding and step forward in whatever way makes sense for you and your life and what you are here to do. Because if you are alive right now on this planet, I assure you that you are part of this process, and very intentionally, in terms of the evolution of humanity and the awakening of our galactic and divine consciousness that is coming forward right now. Everything is coming forward right now, including us, including that aspect of us that is divine, that is sacred, and it's time to start moving forward. And there is a lot of healing components that are part of this today. So, I mean, there have been people reporting to me that they're making massive transitions. There has been a major shift. There's been a major timeline shift. A big one. There's been a big, massive shift energetically. There's been a big timeline shift. And that was happening with the full moon. The full moon was a culmination point. And yes, there's still lots that we're letting go of. There's still quite a bit that is recalibrating itself based on that. And we are ending very soon. We're going to come into the next eclipse cycle. And so that is also wrapping up as well right now, this eclipse cycle that we had been in from December, November or December. Definitely the solar eclipse was on the 14th of December. And so that whole cycle is starting to wrap up. And in the astrology report, we're going to talk about it because not only do we have the next new moon cycle in Taurus, we are also going to have eclipses in this next lunar cycle, the total lunar eclipse with the moon in Sagittarius, and then a solar eclipse as well in Gemini. And so, all along with that, Mercury now in its home sign of Gemini is going to station retrograde pretty much at the new moon, or not at the new moon, is going to be in a conjunction with the sun at the new moon, actually. And then we'll go retrograde shortly after that. I'm getting that confused. That's okay. The point to remember is that we're coming into the eclipse cycle. There's just so much happening. There is so much happening energetically, and the recalibration of what has shifted energetically happening right now is very substantial, and it has been happening now for this whole last week. And so things have to they have to find a new position to be in. So what happens energetically when things shift, it takes some time for that to manifest in material reality. And that's what you're seeing right now. And that's what you're feeling right now. It's certainly what I'm feeling right now. And I think a lot of other people are feeling it as well and experiencing it in real time. They're making very substantial decisions in their lives. They are feeling feeling the intensity of the shift. I know for me, like the rest that I needed last weekend was substantial in order to really hold what is coming in now. And for me, it's like living multiple timelines, because that's kind of what's happening, is that the timeline has already shifted, and now we are making that transition into its manifestation into material reality, which sometimes will be very drastic, making drastic decisions. Maybe concepts we hadn't considered before, or decisions we hadn't really considered before, become really strong. And that potential is right on the surface for us in terms of making shifts and transitions. The healing aspect is a big part of this as well, because when you make significant, headway on a healing experience, right? Something very significant that shifts and changes in that way. You let go of some past life karma. You fulfill a contract in some ways. When that happens, it's the same thing. There's a shift in the energetic resonance. There's a shift in the timeline. And then after that, everything starts to readjust itself in the material. So I feel like that many of us in different ways are experiencing this right now on some level. Some people more than others. It just really depends on what your trajectory is meant to be. So if you're experiencing that on some level, I would say it's perfectly normal. If all of a sudden you've made a decision to leave a position, if you've made a decision that, okay, it's time to move, or it'll be time to move a lot sooner than I had anticipated, anything like that, it's time to activate something. And that is definitely part of the coming out of hiding, stepping forward to activate this new timeline, to step into the physical material reality of this very significant shift. And let's start looking at some imagery here. And we'll talk about the astrology for today, of course, as always, but I think we should look first at the Schumann, because it is, like I said, is now hitting the upper 90s at this moment, and may even go past that. And there's not a ton of solar weather that's incredibly significant right now, which says to me that we are looking at something within the Earth herself and this transition that's happened. So let's look at the Schumann resonance for today. As you can see, the white splotch here. And if you look at it right here, it's peaking at like 94 hertz, right? We talked about this before. It's usually at a baseline of 7 to 8 hertz. And so the electromagnetic field is a much higher frequency than it usually is, signifying that the heartbeat of the planet is increasing. And I've talked about this over the last couple of days. And so just a reminder that this is a modulation, right? There is a signal, right? That is us, that are our electromagnetic field, our energetic field, our aura, however you want, our Merkaba, however you want to characterize it for yourself. There's one signal. This is another signal. And the modulation comes from the introduction of information from one signal to another. And this is what is happening right now with all of us in connection to the planet. So with Venus in Taurus, in the last degrees of Taurus, in conjunction with the Pleiades, Pleiadian starseeds know all about being able to directly connect to natural rhythms, natural energy, experience the natural energy that Gaia herself and the relationship with life in general represents. The Pleiadian starseeds are really able to hold this very, very strongly, actually, which leads to problems in some ways too, because the empathic boundaries are very loose with Pleiadians until they realize how to manage that. So this is, it just keeps getting stronger. Yesterday, there was definitely, as you can see, there was definitely a baseline here, went back down. It was very calm, and now it's shooting back up again. Like I said, 94 hertz. That's very significant. And it's gone a lot higher before. So just keep that in mind, that things are shifting, they're changing, and the Earth herself is giving a signal that's modulating our own. And this can express itself in what seems like very significant and possibly drastic changes, something you hadn't considered before, or had been really under the surface waiting for something else to shift or move out of the way. And yesterday, I think with that trine from Venus to Pluto, right, on fixed star Algol in a trine to Pluto retrograde right now. Something has absolutely shifted in terms of letting go of this aspect of ourself, utilizing the power of our shadow, not to control or to manipulate, but to integrate it and to let it also go and give it up for something more, right? That's Medusa essentially gave her life to Perseus in order for her head of serpents and snakes to turn the Kraken into stone, right? The Kraken, the sea monster, the monster that dwells under the collective unconscious of Pisces. And with Pisces the moon coming out of Pisces into pretty much right now, the moon is in Aries. You can feel too that there emotionally was a culmination point where everything kind of came back into one stream of consciousness that we could reconnect to and then come out of it. Now we have the moon in Aries. So let's look at that. I just want to, this is pretty substantial, and I'm not a type of person necessarily, after I've been following the Schumann and having some basis in astrophysics and chemistry, to understand what it is. But when I bring it up, it definitely is because there's something happening. And sometimes there isn't as much happening as other people like to point out. And that's okay. Everybody's got their own focus on things, but this is really substantial right now. And it's very much in line with what's happening astrologically as well, and in our collective on this planet, So let's look at the actual chart for today. So Planet Watcher. Alrighty, so I'm going to show the transits as it's current. So now we are at 1 to 2 degrees Aries with our moon. So we've come into this time frame now where we emotionally and subconsciously, right, the expression of our inner emotional landscape that the moon represents, that is so transient and shifting and changing all the time, just following the lunar cycle itself. So we've gone from this endless potential that Pisces represents. The moon came into before. Let's backtrack just a little bit. So to see here, the moon, and I am late today, man. The sleep, just needing rest, needing sleep, needing that astral time in order to process information and process energy and shift in energy and consciousness that needs time to transition and recalibrate itself before it starts manifesting in the material. So sleep and rest is essential, especially like REM sleep and stage 4 sleep. This is where a lot of things happen. So it's important to allow yourself to sleep and allow yourself to rest if your body's asking for it. So before the moon came into Aries, the moon was in a sextile with Pluto retrograde. And this is, the consummation that this represents, the end of Pisces, right? It's a consummation. It's about to come back into a seed point at the end of Pisces. And it seems like we're losing power here. And we're going to see in the intuitive message today that can really lead to frustration, and it can lead to a sense of melancholy and depression if we don't see it and feel into the fact that it's a cycle that is unfolding. And so the end of Pisces, it can feel like we are losing our edge, losing our power. We don't know the difference between us and other, but this is the light of fulfillment that blesses a work well done. Well, maybe it was a healing journey. Maybe we had to come to terms with some aspect about ourselves that needs to be addressed, and the cycle needs to play itself out. And so in a sextile to Pluto, right, the investment opportunity that the sextile represents, that 60-degree angle, that work well done and a consummation has the seed of the new cycle already latent within it. And so this sextile to Pluto retrograde, which is really pulling us so much deeper into that power of transformation, especially when it comes to the institutional structures that we identify with collectively is being destroyed, the old guard being pulled down. You know what I mean? It's going to go back over all this territory that we've been experiencing since March of 2020. So at least on some emotional level, we have been able to feel that there is a cycle that has been wrapping up, and the Pluto aspect had really helped with this process. And like I said, the consummation at the end of Pisces, preparing for the new cycle to emerge as everything is dealt with, essentially, right? What happens in the 12th house is when the house of undoing, right? This is the Pisces era or area of life is where we are really emotionally connecting to everything that could be. And so bringing about the next cycle. So you bring with you whatever comes up in the Pisces cycle, you bring with you into the next. And that is what karma represents to a certain extent. Also just a very basic cause and effect. So we had this sextile really letting us know that the consummation of our own healing journey is being supported and giving resources to or being given resources from this Pluto cycle that is going to take us down a very dark road, but ultimately going to enact transformation on a societal level that will be completed, I think, once it comes out of its shadow period in January 2022. So the moon also then came into a sextile with Venus as well right after that. And same thing, it's just like this consummation, this fertile garden under the full moon, like everything that we've put into this process is brought forward in the Pisces time, because it is a representation of everything that has grown and everything that has transpired. And again, in a sextile to Venus that is at the very end of Taurus, is accepting that there are new avenues, new discoveries, new territory to explore once we become aware of and comfortable of the natural cycle of life. And so again, it's the same thing, except with Venus in a different earth sign, and challenging us to a certain extent to take advantage of this investment opportunity, that we can let go of the past. We can accept that natural cycles, and that moving, from the maiden to the woman to the crone, right? That feminine, divine feminine archetype as it transitions over time is such a big part of the Taurus cycle as well. And so we can let go of everything that we've allowed to grow up into this point. And there's still so much to be gained even when we pass that point. And that's kind of the whole point, is that there's some aspects that are ending, right, with Pisces, and we're preparing for the new cycle. And remember, everything that we can create is within us. That was the new moon energy. So beyond that, so then the moon then has moved into Aries, as I had said, right now. And so we feel this renewal and this time emotionally that we are at a new stage. There's a new seed being planted, and it's time to allow it to grow. And that does mean that we have to start stepping out of stepping up, stepping forward, and, we've dropped in. And that is kind of the heart of today in some ways, is that we've dropped in to really see ourselves. And now it's time to start bringing that back out, not for just our own sake, but for the sake of everything that is transpiring right now. So the moon later today is going to come into a sextile with Mercury in its home sign of Gemini. And this does relate to this idea of the divine physician and being able to access the healing waters and have a very fundamental trust in the natural processes by, we know that the bucket and the well exists, and it just takes, it's just a matter of us dipping the bucket into the well in order to have access to that very divine healing energy that represents. So the moon in Aries, making this connection, another sextile. The moon is sextiling so many things today. And giving us a chance to invest ourselves and to invest this other energy into our personal and emotional landscape. We can exist in two places at once as we are transitioning. And if we can trust the process and trust that we can cooperate with nature and get the sustenance, get the healing energy that we need, either for ourselves or to offer it to other people, this will allow us to, manage this space that is about making a transition. And Aries, for as much as it's cardinal fire, it wants to act from something. It is acting from a place of desire and potency to create, which means we hold it all within us. And so the concept of expressing ourselves simultaneously in two different places is the successful transition, right? Being able to exist in the middle of this modulation. And Mercury in Gemini is allowing us to connect very directly to the logos, essentially, to everything that is available to us in order to manifest. And this is just going to keep getting stronger as Mercury moves through its home sign and starts to come into contact not only with the North Node, but is also going to start entering the territory of the Orion constellation, meaning it's going to start really activating the Orion star seeds. And this is going to be becoming much more obvious in this next new lunar cycle. For now, we're finishing up. And so the moon is coming into its balsamic phase. It's very dark. And it's not very easy to reflect accurately on what's going on within us, but that's what the full moon was for. And now we are just finishing up this cycle, allowing it to unfold. And it does seem kind of counterintuitive in some ways with the balsamic moon to make decisions or to do things, but the idea is the decision has already been made. The shift has already been happening. It's now allowing it to come forward, and to trust what has already transpired and allow it naturally to unfold. Okay. So this is part of this moon time, in Aries as well right now. And then we're going to, there'll be astrology for the weekend, and we're going to talk about the whole next lunar month, including the eclipses in the next report. Okay. So this is just for today. And there is, this sense here that we have to take our first steps, that there is a cultural standard in some ways. This is where Vesta is. She's really training her priestesses. She's supporting them, giving them the framework in which to purify and to purify themselves, to discipline themselves, to give them a routine and a set of tasks that actually train them, right? But the quincunx today, you don't see it on the chart, but the moon then comes into a quincunx with Vesta, who is at Alpha Draconis, by the way, still at Alpha Draconis. The moon is also at a position. The quincunx is going to give us an opportunity to adjust ourselves, because there's part of us that's just trusting this process unfolding, realizing that if we are open to a certain amount of influx of spiritual energies, we can start to gather the potency of our desire to create something new. And the quincunx, I think, to Vesta today in Virgo, is really just, giving us an opportunity to adjust ourselves in terms of where we're putting our actual energy, because there is actual location, there is a place and a specific set of, like I said, tasks and routines and actual physical things that we can do that will allow us to be initiated into this process. That Vesta in Virgo represents, being of service to the collective and the community, not being owned by anything. This is what the Virgin really represents. Total purity, not in a sexual way necessarily, but not being owned by any other interests, right? And then being of service to humanity, because the priestesses have completely, see, that's an itchy nose again. I really just don't understand it. Excuse me. So on one hand, on our emotional, on a very personal level, allowing this influx of spiritual energy into allowing these shifts in our own emotional and intuitive nature to happen naturally, because the shift energetically of the timeline has already happened. And now it's just coming forward into something very new within us. It's a very new, fragile seed that the Aries aspect represents. And it doesn't mean that we can't still be training ourselves, disciplining ourselves. In fact, we should be doing this. The heart of today's intuitive message is the Hermit, which is exciting because we saw that chronologically already, that it was going to be something that we could expect, and here we are. So let's actually look right at that. I think that's a good idea to look at the reading for today. So. And a lot of the fixed star energy right now is very much the same as it has been. So just to let you know what's going on there. All right, here's the reading for today, guys. Excellent. All right, so we have the indolence, right? That's Saturn in Pisces energy that's coming, our causal factor. I think a lot of people are frustrated. And when you have Saturn in Pisces, this is where, especially if it was reversed, because then you're not really learning anything from it. You're not allowing this divine intervention that the 8 represents. And let's just get right into it. You're not allowing it. And so this is just, the fantasy has lost all of its attraction. The delusions of the 7 of Cups, right, has lost all of its attraction, the escapism, all of these things. And now we're just kind of squeezed dry emotionally, because Saturn is kind of that, that boundary and that wall that we can't get beyond. And so all that's left really is frustration and being just, and he's squeezed dry. There's not much emotion here to really engage with. And, we have to hear the call. This is what this causal factor is. There's nowhere else to go except to abandon the past, leave the situations that are untenable, and the situation that currently is untenable, and open our eyes. This is important. Open our eyes to the upcoming changes, right? Because the next stage here in the 9 of Cups is happiness. Jupiter in Pisces, which is coming very soon, guys. Jupiter in Pisces is going to be a transit that happens in this next lunar cycle, okay? So keep that in mind, that the next stage is Jupiter in Pisces, literally, and 9 of Cups is Jupiter in Pisces, and is the happiness, the fulfillment emotionally. But we're not quite there yet, because right now we are just being squeezed in so many ways that we have no choice but to move forward or get lost in our own depression. And that is a dark place to go, right? This is where escapism happens. This is where addiction happens. This is where suicides and depression and overdoses happen when we can't get out of this phase. Now, the fact that it's upright is very promising for those of us who are engaged with this message. Okay, so we know that we have to abandon where we've been. We have to open our eyes to what's coming, the current changes, accept them, and also realize that, there are a lot of delusions. That is the Pisces energy. And so eventually we have to accept that, and that can leave us feeling just tapped. Okay, so if you've been feeling frustrated, if you feel like there's nowhere else to go, if you haven't really quite engaged yet with the shifting timeline that has been substantial, don't worry, it's coming, right? This is setting the stage. I mean, you don't really, it's only when you're at the precipice of your own disaster that you have the will to actually change. And this card really sets that up. So just take that and keep that in mind. If you're feeling frustrated, if you're feeling like you're stuck in some ways emotionally, instead of getting stuck in it, you just know that this is part of the process of opening your eyes to what's coming, okay? So, and as we are now in our present heart of the moment is the Hermit, that Virgo card, or Saturn in Aquarius, the search for wisdom. So right now, in the heart of the moment, we are definitely feeling, the introversion into our inner self, right? Listening to the inner voice. We're going within. This is an active process right now of going within, going deeper down. And again, the moon in a sextile to Pluto retrograde, this, gave us the ability to let go of everything that has come and be able to address what is coming, right? The newness and the freshness of a moon in Aries, right? That activation. Now remember, I don't see a ton of flared tempers. I feel like this moon in Aries really is a fresh seed, considering the fact that we are now in the spring equinox, at least in the northern hemisphere. So wisdom and maturity, realization. These are all the aspects of the hermit that we have access to. And this is where I think a lot of us are right now, is in this process of really looking deeper, getting into the depths of ourselves, doing the work underneath the surface to really master ourselves and bring that light. This is about stepping forward and shining, right? It's not hiding anymore. It's okay to go in. Because you don't have to, it doesn't have to be hiding just because you become a hermit. This is much more about being able to focus and concentrate by letting the outside world not influence this process. And this is where we are right now. So what's interesting is that we have at the root, the Buddha prepares, but reversed, right? The Buddha prepares is about kind of being the hermit in some ways, and the death card as well. We have number 13. So when it's reversed, we are now moving out. It's time for action, right? Which is very interesting because at the heart here, we have this Virgo energy. But remember, who rules Virgo? Mercury. Mercury rules Virgo. It's mutable earth. That means it's changeable. It's malleable. It shifts along, and it's in opposition to Pisces. Remember that. It shifts and it moves around because it's about analysis. It's about putting things where they belong. It's about shifting things around in your physical world and within you, right? That's why the sixth house is about your health routines and your work responsibilities and your routines and all of that really very nuts and bolts type of reality, but shiftable, changeable. The impact we have with our mind and the ability to manifest is very strong in Virgo, okay? With especially Mercury involved. And so at the root of us here, okay? At the root of us here energetically, it is time to step out. We've done a lot of preparatory work and we still feel it at the heart of us, this inner realm, going inside, listening to the inner voice. But it's time now where we are rooting into this moment where it's time to step out, moving into the crowd, time for action. We've done all of this inner prep work and now and reaching within to find our power. And at the root of us energetically, we are starting to feel that it's time to step out. Okay. Now, right now in the heart of us, we're still kind of working with the Virgo energy that the hermit is representing. And this is why that quincunx with the moon in Aries is really important today, because on the one hand, we're doing this hermit work. On the other hand, emotionally, we are allowing things to naturally shift energetically within us. But we do feel at the root of us that it's time to start stepping out, okay? And as we move up in through our axis of power, right, we come up to the 8 of forces, the lightning bolt. So also when it's reversed, it's showing that the storm has dispersed. It's already happened. Like the big shift in consciousness, the big shift in the timeline, the lightning bolt that cracks, the sky and like splits the tree and does all this damage. It's already passing. So there might be some cleanup required, right? We're going to have to clean up a little bit and manage the space that has been, chaotically thrown all over the place. But we want to set new roots. We want to seek new ground. We want to start growing new things. And this energy here in its reversal position is showing us that where our conscious awareness can be and is meant to be is to start working with the new ground, right? apply energy to whatever compels you, because we are going to have a lot of support within us, as we see with the Knight of Discs. I'm just going to pull it up. To be industrious, to put into form whatever it is that we are now manifesting, right? Industrious, patient, steady, and reliable. This is the Knight of Discs, okay? Clever in material matters, how to make things actually happen. Working without asking much, right? Concentrating on the task without getting distracted. That's a hard one right now. And distracted by mind games, distracted by psyops, distracted by anything. So this is what to expect with all of this interacting with each other. Time to step forward, right? Time to focus on what we can build now up from the storm that has already passed, right? The damage has been done. The crack in the fabric of reality has happened. And now we are able to create something from this. And we have this support now within us. We are the Knight of Discs. Success results from instinct and pragmatism and striving for material success and dedicated to making something. So, the Knight of Discs is the fire of earth. There's not a lot of air and there's not a lot of water. And so it's very focused on what he's building. And, he's the lord of the wild and fertile land, right? He is managing what is growing and concentrating on it. Oh, man. So this is what to expect. This is incredible. All right. And I know that, and it's coming out of a place of frustration and depression and just feeling like totally tapped emotionally. Like, what are we doing? Where are we going? Why is this happening? But if we take this energetic polarity here, right? This axis of power, and realize that we are doing this really intense inner work to get ourselves aligned with the timeline shift and root ourselves in this dynamic of stepping forward. I mean, we really are going to be supported in this role of building something, right? And not getting distracted by all of the other stuff. There's so much distraction, because when we're distracted, we can't actually focus on building anything. So we do have some incredible guidance for today. Number one, the divine physician. A couple things I want to point out about this. Number one, he's got the caduceus right on him, right? Number two, he's got the bucket and the well, which is very connected to the sextile between Mercury and the moon today. So again, there is our ability and the caduceus is very connected to Mercury, right? This is very connected to Mercury. And so Mercury as the manifester, as the magician, there is a healing component that goes along with this. And it's because as this divine physician in this role, trusting and having full trust and knowing in the natural healing potential of the natural world, of the earth, of the water in the earth, right? And you can see that he's sending Reiki to this woman, right, to her heart space. And so it's time to step out into this role, either to receive the healing, to be the divine physician, and just know that part of it is where Mercury is today, and connecting to the moon in that sextile that is allowing in an influx of spiritual energies while still being protected in some ways by a seed that is forming around this very vulnerable part of ourselves, which is the moon. Along with this is really interesting, is the peacock. Now the peacock, oh my God, the peacock is very Venusian. And in fact, it represents the last degree of Taurus, where Venus is getting to very quickly. The peacock is about stepping forward and stop hiding, literally, behind an adaptive persona that had worked for a long time and is now time to let go of. There's so much of this energy today that you can really feel that we're stepping beyond what is now obsolete, what is old. It has taken us as far as we need it to, and now we are stepping forward. There's been a certain safety and comfort and a necessity to that role, right? It's been adaptive. It's been part of the learning process of who we are, but now we're stepping into something new. And we can shed the guilt, right? You don't need to feel ashamed or guilty for who you are. It's really tempting to stay in your old role, whatever that is, because you think that's what you're supposed to be doing. And probably up until this point, that is what we were supposed to be doing. Now it's time to start building something new. And the Peacock, like I said, very Venusian, very connected to Venus, very connected to Taurus. Let yourself stand out and be noticed, either as the healer or to receive healing. And this is part of how we are going to step out of that role into action from this time of inner preparation. We've been doing a lot of work, and now it's time to stand out. Now, when it comes to the Eight of Forces, this is a very significant change, and it can be devastating to be struck by lightning, right? Very Uranian, of course. The Wolverine is saying you're a lot tougher than you think you are, because that Wolverine, wow, if you've ever seen a Wolverine in action in the wild, they are so fierce. I mean, look at the claws. You can see them right here. They actually stand out a lot in this imagery, and that's on purpose because they are fierce. They are so ferocious, and they don't seem like it. They seem like little badgers or whatever, but then they come along and they scare off all, you know what I mean? Like if there is any kind of, like a predator has killed its prey, the Wolverine is the scavenger and comes along and just like intimidates everybody and is so ferocious and fierce that it scares away whoever, scares away the actual predator, and the Wolverine takes the meal. So, but the idea is that you are a lot tougher than you think you are, because the Wolverine is actually so ferocious and doesn't look like it. Your inner wisdom is going to dictate when to move ahead, okay? And when to retreat. And this is just, bringing our awareness to the fact that we will be given the direction when it's time, and to trust that. And there's so much of that in the astrology today and in this transmission in general, is that trusting that aspect of us, that inner knowing that is going to lead us in the right direction, and know that part of being able to do that is to drop in. And we've been doing that. And now it's going to be time to start coming out. And part of this too is being assertive with other people, right? So assert your boundaries physically, assert your boundaries energetically, assert your boundaries in the astral. Know what it is that you're here to do. And if you don't know, trust that it's going to come to you. Like this timeline has shifted so drastically that nobody is going to escape the recalibration on a material level. So just know that you are tougher than you think you are. If this Eight of Forces, this lightning bolt, has been excessively destructive for your life, just know that it's part of creating a new space for something to grow, which is what Pluto represents. And the Four of Forces, the springtime, right? This is a time for planting and growing and active preparation for what's growing. That's what you do in the springtime. You start to condition the soil. You start to plow. You start to plant seeds, right? Put effort into whatever it is you're laying the groundwork for. This is a very creative period. And again, if you are feeling devastated by this Eight of Forces energy that we are all kind of focusing on, just know that you are tougher than you think. And this is here to create space for something new to grow, just like in the springtime. There's a lot of growth. So joy and optimism is an important part of this as well. And not everybody is, experiencing all of this in the same way, but this is some really good support for how we can engage with this energy if it has been particularly disruptive, or is really throwing our life into chaos seemingly because it's not what we expected, or we didn't know it was coming, or it's just kind of shocking to us. So just know that you are tougher than you think you are, and that it's time to start preparing the ground for this new aspect to come in. And of course, the Knight of Discs is like, he's a farmer. And this is very much about planting and growing. So you guys, that's a transmission for today. It's Friday, so there will be no transmissions for the next 2 days, but I will have astrology coming for the new moon cycle and definitely for this weekend. And if you're interested in a reading, how these energies are impacting you, you can reach out through my website, which is in the description box below. We're also on Telegram and Facebook, so you can connect there. You want to get on my mailing list so I can keep you up to date with certain announcements about presentations that I'm offering, or any kind of new services, new announcements, anything like that comes through my mailing list. So you can sign up directly from my website. There's a splash page that comes right up, and you just put in your whatever email you want, and that'll be on the list. So thank you so much for being here. I truly appreciate each and every one of you. I hope you have a great weekend. Reach out if you need anything. I love you guys. Thank you for being here, and I'll see you on the next video.